I love journalism because I love information. I love to be informed. I love to find out how things are going. Waking up in the morning, picking up a paper or listening to the radio or tuning on TV and seeing what is going on. I like to be the person who brings that to the people, informs people, helps them know what's going on, what's happening in their community, in their country, in the world, and lets you know that this is important in your city, in your place, wherever you live. I think we would be in trouble if we didn't have local news and local journalism. News is always going to be important wherever you go, wherever you are. Human rights, everything that happens to us as a community, we need, if anything, more than ever now to be informed and finding out the truth, facts about everything that is happening. There's a little bit of a crisis, if you wanted to call it, because of social media. Anyone can be the source of information, anyone can put up anything. But when you have the real source of information that you can trust, it requires a lot of good journalism, and a lot of good journalism requires a lot of investment, and then reporting those facts and finding out the truth behind those facts. It's always really, really sad when you see a community newspaper closing down. That really hits me hardly, because when that happens, it's the news, the truth that dies with it. Another community that we are creating that is going to be less informed, that is going to be less knowledgeable about what is happening, less knowledgeable about democracy. The people need to be informed, whichever way you look at. We need to keep that fire burning. We need to keep that spirit of people being informed and knowing facts and finding out the truth. That's the essence of life, I think. I think we need that to continue to happen. If you don't have real journalists investigating that and finding out about these things, our communities are dead. We don't live anymore. We don't exist if we don't have those kind of people who are trying to find the truth behind everything that's going on.
I love journalism because it allows me to help people. It's all I've ever wanted to be. I was always interested in storytelling when I was a little girl. I've loved hearing about stories. So my parents, who are both immigrants, they often needed help getting answers and didn't know what questions to ask or who to go to. So that was part and parcel the reason why I wanted to get into journalism. I felt like it was kind of my responsibility to help them out in that way, and it just kind of transformed into wanting to help other people get answers when they had no idea how to get them or where to turn.
I am Robert Cribb. I'm an investigative journalist at the Toronto Star. Journalism matters more than ever because we live in an increasingly complex world with incredibly mixed messages, manicured messages, complicated issues, and it's all easily manipulated. And journalists really are important to the public discussion, to the public debate, and to trying to figure out where truth lies in the mass of information. Our problem today is not too little information, it's too much information, and too much information that is wrong and lies. The role that journalists play, I think, is increasingly important today more than ever, because it's the work that we do on a daily basis to try and dig into the morass of information, figure out what's real, what's not, and where the greatest public interest is. The issues around public safety, around corruption, collusion, the wasting of taxpayer dollars. These are questions that nobody else is going to answer. If not journalism, then what? It's corporations and governments accounting for themselves, voluntarily and preemptively coming forward to the public to explain to them how breaches undermine the public interest and caused public health concerns or were influenced by corruption and collusion. We know from every shred of evidence and the fundamentals of human nature that they're not going to do that. And so what's left then? It's journalists who get up every day and dig into documents and data and talk to as many people as they can to figure out what's real, what's true, and to hold to account those institutions that are responsible. If journalists aren't doing that, who is? One of the great myths that has somehow taken hold is this notion that journalists get up in the morning, make stuff up, and put it in the paper at the end of the day, and that's that. One thing I wish the public understood was the depths that we go to get it right. The weeks and months of preparation, of research, of backgrounding, of double, triple, quadruple checking, and then ultimately going through rigorous lawyering to ensure that every fact has been checked and verified. The resources and time that go into these major investigations is extraordinary. To replace the kind of questioning and accountability journalism that is protecting Canadians, I see it every day, we lose that. What's going to replace that? And that's the question I don't think anyone's really answered. The concern is that when it gets to that point, it may be too late for any journalist. When you're able to actually do work that speaks truth to power and influences changes that affect people, it's the greatest of rewards, and it's one of the reasons we get up every day.
Canadian journalism is in crisis. Over the past several years, our country's lost a third of journalism jobs, and in the past year alone, we've lost 50 community newspapers. Here's the problem. As more and more people are reading their news online, advertisers aren't spending their money in traditional mediums like print, radio, and TV. That means we're literally trading dollars for digital dimes. The kind of revenue that comes in from online advertising is a tiny fraction of what we used to get from traditional ads. To make matters worse, the lion's share of that digital revenue is going to companies like Google and Facebook. So the money's not even staying in the country. It's going south of the border into their coffers of Silicon Valley. When we have advertising revenue that's declining that dramatically, what we're left with is impoverished newsrooms. We're going to have more layoffs of reporters. We're going to have more newspapers closing. And we're going to have fewer and fewer stories that you need to hear, stories holding political cheats to account and exposing consumer ripoffs, stories that help hold our very fabric of democracy together. Quality journalism isn't cheap, but we can't afford a future without it. When you factor in journalism salaries and all the legal fees behind it, your basic beat story can cost as much as $331. An opinion piece can cost as much as $700. And if you want to do a deep dive investigative piece, that can cost nearly $11,000. That's why the Media Action Plan is calling on government to help save local news. Here's a few things they can do to help. We want to change tax laws to help bring in advertising revenue back into Canada. That'll help stop money going south of the border to Google and Facebook. 2, we want to give people tax breaks when they subscribe to their favorite newspapers or their local news sites. We also want to make donations to news publications tax deductible. Tell your member of parliament where you stand. Go to mediaactionplan.ca and help save local news.